On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing binge eating and binge eating behaviours, and not only the commonality of them, but discuss some helpful ways to help you reduce this binge eating behaviour from happening through some dietary regimes and also a little bit of mindset work. But I just want to preface this by saying that I am not a qualified psychologist or behavioural specialist. These are just things that have helped my clients along the way with dealing with these issues. And they are just some, recommendations. So please, if you have serious eating issues, eating disorders, that sort of behaviour, then really go to a professional that is highly experienced and qualified to deal with that. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Breakthrough the Bullshit podcast. I am your host, Alice Round. I am pumped to have you here. We are going to really strip back all of the bullshit surrounding nutrition, training, fad diets, everything in the industry, so that we can give you education to get the best possible results. So sit back, enjoy the ride, and let's go through all this bullshit. And this is a topic that I'm pretty damn passionate about, and that is because I've been through it myself. Obviously, I've talked before about my story and my battles with eating and bulimia back in my teenage years. So I feel like it's a topic that I'm comfortable talking about now, as I've gotten myself to a pretty good place with my food, a very good place with my food and my relationship with my food and my body. And it's something that a lot of my clients are still dealing with at the moment. And it's not, I think the thing with binge eating is that it doesn't have to be a full-on bloat eating disorder for it to be a problem. And what I mean by that is a lot of people don't realize that maybe it's an issue, the fact that they can't control themselves around food, around social situations, all of these sort of events. And it's actually more of a problem than often what they might think. So what I mean by this is a lot of the time I'll get these sort of emails from clients or maybe potential clients where they say that they feel uncomfortable in social situations, where they feel like they're out of control when it comes to food in these environments that are foreign to them, where they can't get their, chicken, broccoli and sweet potato, and that they feel like they've lost all sense of control in this situation. Now that, at the end of the day, is not a healthy relationship with food. So if you are listening and you are someone that really fears going to social situations due to food intake, or you don't want to have certain foods in the house, let's say, for example, you can't leave a packet of Tim Tams in the house without thinking about it, knowing it's there, or wanting to go and grab that food, basically, and eat the whole packet, then there is obviously a bit of an issue with self-control and food in this sense. So what I do as a coach is I aim to get my clients to have a healthier relationship with not only their bodies, but also the food they put in it, the choices that they make, and how we can progress you forward in life where food doesn't really control you, where you control food. And I think that's really, really essential for clients to understand. So one of my biggest tips when it comes to binge eating or mindless eating even, and just kind of emotional eating patterns, is the number one thing is the more you restrict, the worse it gets. That is number one. So if you are now on a very restrictive dietary regime, you're on some strict meal plan, you're on some boring food plan that you're just not enjoying the food, or you're just over it, and you're eating the same thing and you're getting pretty good results, but then come the weekend, you want to be a little bit more flexible with your friends, you want to go out and have a meal, and you can't do that because you're on this boring eating regime. Now that is when often binge eating strikes, mindless eating, all of these things, because you're like the old fuck it approach. You're like, well, I can't stick to my meal plan, so fuck it, I'm going to eat everything, and I'll just get back on track on Monday. Now that is not a good mindset or relationship to have with food. The fact that you're worried that one meal is going to ruin all of your progress. Now it can actually ruin your progress if that turns into a full-on binge. But for me, it's all about flexibility with my clients. So the more flexible we can create their plans, where they can be flexible on the weekends and still get results, where they've got choices when it comes to food, where they can pick what foods they want to eat in their plan every single day, where they're educated around nutrition rather than following some boring meal plan that is going to maybe cause them to binge eat. I do think that meal plans are a part of the problem. I think that meal plans personally do encourage people to feel limited, restricted with foods, and have no flexibility. I believe that meal plans have a time and a place. I believe that they're important if you have a client who's dealing with, say, gastrointestinal issues, or they are have a lot of food intolerances or allergens and they're just struggling to get the nutrients into their diet, then they can be a good idea for the client for a short-term period, not for the rest of their life, to just help them get more educated around the right type of food combinations or choices in their day. But they are not the be-all and end-all, okay, guys? So meal plans really often do more harm than good, in my opinion. And I keep saying in my opinion because everyone's going to differ in this. But from what I've seen from a mental standpoint and a binge eating standpoint, flexible dieting is where it's at. So that is number one when it comes to binge eating. Don't restrict your food, be flexible with your choices and flexible with your nutrition, but specific with your goals. Because there is no reason as to why you can't eat, a couple of Tim Tams on occasion, fit them into your macros and still get results. Now, I'm not all about eating this food on the daily, but I'm just saying it's better off as a female, if you're having a craving and you want to have a couple of squares of chocolate or whatever in your day, you're better off having that than feeling food guilt around doing that and still being able to hit your goals as well and still be able to see results, because that's what I'm all about. All right, so the number two thing when it comes to binge eating or mindless eating, number two thing that is going to help you guys is be accountable to your feelings. So a big one is that people don't understand why they do it. And a lot of the time that's the problem. You need to understand what you're unhappy about, what is actually causing you to do that, because I can guarantee you most of the time if you're completely happy, you're not going to go and binge eat, okay? Think about it. If you've had a really good day, are you going to go and have an all-out binge on food? It's probably not going to happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because some people eat out of happiness, other people eat out of sadness, other people eat out of loneliness, boredom. There are so many different reasons why people tend to overeat and use food as a comfort, and I want you to understand which one of those you do. So that's really, really important. So if you're a binge eater, I want you to now pause this podcast and write down what thing triggers your binge eating. Is it boredom? Is it emotions? Is it happiness? Is it sadness? What thing is actually triggering it? And get in tune with that emotion, get in tune with that feeling, because when you pinpoint what it is, then you can make a change. And that's why it's so different for every individual client, and why I like to work with clients on this one-on-one. So then we can set up strategies based around that. So let's say, for example, a common one is that people do it out of sadness. So when they're unhappy about something, and that might be something really deep rooted in their life, that might be unhappiness in a relationship, a job, it might be something causing them stress in their life that they're completely unhappy about. And that way we can set up solutions around that. So obviously one of the big goals there is going to be to reduce that unhappiness or remove it from their life. So in this situation, one of my biggest tips that I give to these clients who are struggling with something is, first up, we need to create some positive habits so that you're in a much more positive mindset. So this might be doing daily gratitude, this might be doing some meditation, this might be even getting rid of some of the stuff causing them unhappiness in their life. And that may be a relationship, that may be a partner, they may be unhappy because they're lonely, that may be getting a pet, that may be moving in with a roommate, that may be going and hanging out with friends more. Whatever it is, we're basically trying to understand that food isn't the answer for emotions. Okay, so food is never the answer. Food is never the thing that's going to make you feel better. 90% of the time it'll make you feel worse, because you would have probably worked so hard during the week or all the other days of your nutrition, and then you've gone the fuck it approach, I'm going to eat everything and lose absolutely all control. And then you're going to feel like you've lost your power, which is not a good feeling either, because it's hard then to get back on track sometimes. So the biggest one, guys, like I said before, is restriction is going to cause binge eating. A lot of the time it's massive restriction or overtraining, undereating, where you're ravenous, way too hungry on very low calories or on a very boring caloric plan. And then the other one is obviously the emotional side attached to food. And I'll definitely delve into that more in other podcasts, because it's a pretty big one on its own and I've only really touched on it today. But if you guys want to hear more about the more emotional side to food, I will have an actual NLP therapist on to discuss that with you guys, and get someone that is highly experienced in that area to talk about it. If you want it, send me an email back and I will get them on the show to info@aliceround.com. You can send through any topics you want to hear on this, guys. So my biggest take-home tips for you with the emotional eating side to things today is assess the emotion. assess what you're feeling and why it's happening. If it's mindless eating, then that's another big one as well, because normally mindless eating is attached to boredom, is attached to unhappiness, but it's more underlying and you often don't notice it. So I don't believe that people just mindlessly eat for no reason. You're never just completely mindless, wandering around in the kitchen, shoving food in your mouth. It just doesn't happen. So it's attached to something, guys. So make sure that you can define whatever emotion is causing you to do that and be aware of it and get in tune with that. And that can be hard sometimes. That can be a very emotional experience if you're trying to get to the root of a problem and you might not realize that your unhappiness in your relationship is causing that. And then you've got to face that. Then you've got to deal with that and decide whether you want to get out or want to stay in it. And it can get quite deep and quite heavy. And that's why it's important to work one-on-one with a client on these issues. So basically, I guess just to summarize, I don't want you guys to ever feel alone. If you ever feel like you are having these problems where you're constantly overeating, binge eating, mindlessly eating, emotionally eating, being so restricted on your diet that you feel like you want to eat everything when you finished it or when you're during it, whenever you have like a cheat day or whatever it is, that you lose all self-control, then it is something that you really want to get on top of now. Because if you let this spiral, it can turn into, as a more severe eating issue. Not only that, but you'll feel like you lose your power in other aspects of your life. You feel like you don't have self-control, which is not a good feeling at all. So really take some time and focus on what's causing the issues. Sometimes people just brush over it. So really get in tune with the emotions, get in tune with what's going on in your body, and that's going to be a really good way to progress forward. It's not an easy path, it will take time. Don't expect just to overnight for it to happen. For me personally, when I was doing it, it was happening, every 1 to 2 days, the kind of binge purge cycle, and then over time it was happening maybe once a week, and then once a month, and then once every 6 months, and then never. That's a good progression. It's hard to cut it off completely cold turkey, especially if it's relating to your body image and how you feel and look in the mirror, and especially if you're not physically changing, it can take a little bit longer. And that's okay. Take it at your own pace, but the biggest thing here, guys, is don't hide in silence. Get some assistance with it. Get someone to help you, even if it's a friend to help you be accountable. Even if it's those days that you're feeling like you want to go eat the pantry, you've almost got to phone the friend there. Someone that you can call and talk to them about it rather than letting it spiral and letting it get worse. Because like I said, the worst thing is that you close off about it and don't discuss it with anyone, because you're just going to brush it off and be like, oh, I don't have a problem. And then later on in life, you don't want to be stuck with this same issue, and it may get progressively worse, where it takes over more of a control of your life. So if you have any more questions on this topic, guys, please email me, and I would love to do some more podcasts on this and many, many other topics. But thank you so much for tuning in today. A little bit of a quick one on 2 top tips for binge eating. And I'm really pumped. I will be doing some more specific training content in the next episode, and also covering some new exciting topics coming up, and like I've said, some special guests. So thank you so much for sticking around for another episode, and I'll chat to you guys soon. See ya. Thank you for listening to another episode of Break Through the Bullshit. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would love it if you could leave a review on iTunes. Let me know, comment what you'd love to see more of, and be sure you've also subscribed on YouTube and iTunes for updates. And if you'd like more info, then you can also add the Team Round Support Facebook page, which is available to access for all of you, and you just simply need to search for it on Facebook.